Ah. Hi, welcome. My name is Lex Crielaars, and my normal job title is absolutely too boring to mention, so I'm going to call myself a dark web tour guide for now. What I mostly do is storytelling. So I have a story here for you today, and this is a story about adversaries in the middle, or AiTM, which is a thing that has exploded a lot in the past. With the adoption of MFA, multi-factor authentication, threat actors have been trying to find ways around it. It used to be easy. They would steal your username, they would steal your password, and then ta-da, we would have access to your account and your bank account and this and that. And then we started deploying this very annoying two-factor authentication. You would get a text message of a code or a TOTP or something like that, and then, we have thwarted all the threat actors. And then the threat actors thought, we're going to think about something that we can thwart you back, and it's the infinite cat and mouse game between us and them. So how does it normally work when you log into, I don't know, Microsoft or Google or whatever? You are on your laptop, you go to that particular website, you fill in your username or password, you get a request for a two-factor authentication, and then that website sends you a session token. And then with that session token, you have logged in, and that session token is actually kind of powerful. I'll explain later. Now, adversary in the middle is the same thing, except the bad guys, they inject themselves in the middle of this stream. So when you, as the victim, think you are logging into the official Amazon, Google, Microsoft, SharePoint, whatever website, you're actually on a fake website, and the fake website is run by the threat actor. And then they proxy your login request to the actual website, and then the actual website says, hey, I need a two-factor authentication code. And then the threat actor proxies that back to you. And then you, of course, I need to give my two-factor authentication because I am on the legitimate website. You are not. And then you fill that in. And then the adversary says, well, thank you. I can now log in as you with your username and your password and your 2FA code. And I'm going to steal your session token. And now with that session token, I can authorize myself at that website as you. And the additional downside of having your session token stolen is that it is usually a long-lived token. By long-lived, I mean 30 days, 90 days, not 2 years. And that if you reset your password or something like that, the session token is still active in most cases. So you think, they may have stolen my username and password, but I'll just reset my password and then I am safe again. Wrong. So, now we know a bit about the adversary in the middle. How does this live in the cyber realm domain? Well, it's mostly actually phishing as a service. There are a lot of cyber criminals out there who offer this to other cyber criminals because, if you can't make money off of unsuspecting victims out there in the world, then you can always make money off of other criminals, right? So they offer this as a service to other people. There we go. And basically the entire pyramid from script kiddies to cyber criminals to financially motivated to nation state allied to nation state funded to the actual nation states use this model in order to gain access to credentials and accounts of people that they want to get access to. Some of these are pretty professionally developed. Some of these are not so professionally developed, and you can just smell the ChatGPT through the code base. But the threat actors use adversary in the middle attacks for a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's just to gain access to somebody's account. It can be for business email compromise. Hey, I'm going to phish you. And then when I've successfully phished you, I have access to your email account, then I'm going to email you because you know that guy, you trust that guy. Oh, I got an email from him. Of course I'm going to click this link. And then I have access to your account. And then I'm going to send him an email, and you know that guy. And then before you know it, I have all your email accounts, and you have just trusted the guy or gal that you normally have contact with. And then, ta-da, I have an entire web of email accounts that I now have access to with your other credentials, your mailboxes, and so and so and so. And from there, I can do all kinds of bad things, trademark. Having access to your account, especially if it's your corporate account, allows me to do a lot of data exfiltration. I can steal data from there, things like ransomware attacks and things like that. Or I can just sell the account because, hey, you work at this and that company, and there might be somebody out there that wants to target that company and will buy the initial access from me, the session token or just the credentials or whatnot, for a nice sum of money, and then they can do whatever they want, and I don't want to know about it, and Bob's your uncle, goodbye. Okay, a lot of threat actors want to do phishing, but don't know how to do phishing, or at least not technically. So what they do is they go out and buy phishing kits. And these phishing kits, there's quite a few of them now. These are the ones that we have eyes on. The ones that are in bold, so Tycoon, Kratos, Mamba, Naked Pages, Saiga, and Flowerstorm, are the ones that we have pretty much automated the entire process for ingesting threat intelligence around the deployment of these phishing kits. And the other ones, Evil Proxy, Evil Nginx, and so on, are the ones that we still do manually because they change things, they try to stay under the radar, and so on, so on, so. But we look at these phishing kits because they have commonalities in the way that they are being deployed, in the way that they work, and by finding these unique identifiers, it helps us when scanning the internet and when being provided submissions of phishing sites and say, hey, this one is actually from Tycoon, or this one is actually from so-and-so. And then we build signatures and detection logic on that, and then help protect our customers. So, but before we started doing all that, we asked ourselves, should we even do this? Because there is actually quite a lot of threat intelligence around adversary in the middle attacks already out there. Sequoia, Media News, or a few companies, Helsezegt, NFCert in Norway. They do a lot of work around adversary in the middle, these phishing kits. And is it really important that we also start to do our own research? Well, yes. Why? It is one of the most common attack vectors that we see in our security operations center. Even though there are very many ways to protect yourselves against adversary in the middle attacks now, it's still very easy to do, it's very cheap to do for a threat actor, and it's still very successful, unfortunately. So we still see a lot of them. And given the fact that we have quite a reach as an organization ourselves on sensor data and things like that, we can actually fill in a piece of the pie charts of what all the other organizations might miss. So we complete the picture even more, even though there is already a relatively complete picture. With our information added to it and sharing with everybody, we make an even more complete picture. So how do we do this? How do we, let's get into the nitty-gritty. We have something called urlquery.net. You might have heard of something called urlscan.io. urlquery.net is basically the same, but not exactly the same. It was developed by our log team. Actually, one guy, Lars Olav. Let's give it up for Lars. Hey, well done, Lars. Hey! Yeah, I'm going to show him this on YouTube. He'll be happy. And what does it do? Well, it analyzes URLs, just like URLs scan does. You put it in a URL, the URL gets sandboxed, and before you know, you have a full report around this website and a suspiciousness score of is this website legit or is this website absolutely not legit. The difference with URL scan, there's a few things. URL query dumps the entire website and the entire JavaScript engine and all the resources that belong to that page for analysis. And we run it through a wide range of sandboxes in order to say, hey, is this website actually legit or not? And when people submit phishing websites from, for instance, Tycoon, 2FA, and things like that, we use the markers that come from there and the indicators of compromise to feed that into our threat intelligence. So the difference between URL scan and urlquery.net is there is a pro version for URL scan. There's a free version that you can use, but if you want to disable internet access or make the endpoint that you come out of a different country and things like that, you have to get the pro subscription and then you have to pay. This one's entirely free. So the next time you want to submit a website to URL scan, I'm not saying that you should skip URL scan, but like the meme says, why not both? It's free, so give it a go and see if this scratches a different need that you might not get with a URL scan. It comes with an API, so if you want to integrate it in your workflow and want to automate your submissions, you can. Also, that is free for use. And what do we use it for? Well, we use it and the information that we get from there for threat hunting. We automatically harvest IOCs from URL query. And we use it for something called secure DNS. And you're like, what's secure DNS? Well, secure DNS is another free service that we have. It's these 4 IP addresses. They do what you expect them to do. They DNS your traffic and they translate URLs into IP addresses. But if there is a DNS request that is malicious, according to our threat intelligence, we sinkhole it. You can use this by simply changing the DNS servers on your whatever home router at your grandpa and grandma's parents, or your parents if they're like, you know, not exactly technically illiterate, and you're kind of worried that they might click on a phishing link, and you're tired of them calling you up every time saying that, is this email for real? Do I really need to pay? And then you're like, no, mom, you don't need to pay the IRS again. It's this is phishing. So what I've done is, at my parents and grandparents, put these IP addresses as their DNS server, so I know that when they go to something that is slightly less legitimate, they get a blank website, they get a sinkhole page explaining, they don't understand, then they call me, and then I know, aha, okay, it was sinkholed because of our secure service. Non-DNSSEC and DNSSEC versions are available, free service, knock yourself out. So, example. We'll take one of these phishing kit websites. This one is from Tycoon2FA, so it was generated with that particular phishing kit. And what does that look like? Well, as a user, it looks kind of like this. You get an email or text message, whatever. They lure you to one of these landing pages, and then you're like, oh, a document. Oh, I need to pay. Oh, I need to whatever. And then you click. Okay. So what you need to know is that with most of these phishing kits, as you start typing, everything that you type is automatically sent that way. You don't have to hit submit, especially if you end up in filling your credit card here. And you fill in your credit card, and you fill in your CVV code and your expiration date, and then you're like, oh, wait, this is fake, this is a fake site. Oh, just in time, I didn't click submit. You're already too late. It was already sent to their backend. Remember that very handy password manager that you have with autofill and, you know, credit card information in there that it just like fills in your credit card information at the push of a button, or sometimes even automatically? Yeah. Gone. Okay, so these guys have been around since 2023. They're one of the biggest ones, which is why we're using them as an example here. And what you need to know is that this is actually a three-stage thing. There is a landing page, there is the backend that is for the threat actor, and there is then a service page, which is the checker, and then the stealer page. So this is not one website where everything happens. There's actually 1, 2, and 3 steps included here. They use a user agent of Axios, and the target resource that they have is home office in order to, you know, flow away in the traffic as you analyze it. So like, oh, office, home, sure, fine, whatever. But for us, these are things that we use in our signature detection in order to find these guys. So, one of the advantages of URL query is, like I said, we dump the entire JavaScript engine and all the resources, so we have all the code that belongs with that particular website. Here's a small part of the code, because part of it is that you get a turnstile challenge. It's this one. You've probably seen it a million times. Prove that you're a human. Prove that you're not a robot. What check marks don't look like a traffic light, or you know, those types of things. There is an invisible ID on the website called AN7, and it renders the CAPTCHA into that ID, making it visible. And then in the code, there is obfuscation. And obfuscation in this case is writing backwards. You can see it here in the code, for instance. You can see ERXP, which is expired backwards, or RORE, error backwards. So it's not really obfuscation, but you know, they're just trying to make it one layer more difficult, that when you do your regular expressions through this for these types of keywords, that you don't find it. So yeah, you see here a couple of examples of those backwards strings. and then they join them, and then they reverse them, and then you get the original word again. Language. Timeout. Okay. So, if that is successful, you move on to the checker function, which is the next one. Because they actually check if you're like a legitimate, if you are phishable, is what they want to check. So in the checker, they create a form with all the information that you have put in there, and then they post it to a specific URL. But that only happens after they check that this checker domain is actually reachable. If you can reach that, because it's not being blocked by any type of threat intel or a smart firewall or something like that. Can you reach that? Yeah, okay, then post the information and check if it was successful or if it was an error. If you cannot reach their checker domain, they just dump you to Amazon.com, they say go do your Christmas shopping and then buy. So if you've ever gone to a website, expected one website and then ended up on Amazon, you're like, how did I end up in Amazon? Probably something like this happened. So the landing page that you get sent to from the phishing mail or link or whatever is one thing. But this checker domain is actually a lot more valuable from a threat intelligence perspective, because those landing pages, they just create them and dump them and create them and dump them like non-stop. So if you think like, haha, I have a domain name for this landing page, I'm going to put this in my threat intelligence, and everybody that goes to this page will know that it's a phishing. It's too late. It's already gone. And they've already created a new one 5 minutes later with a different name. So those landing pages, they just come and go non-stop. But those checker domains, those are a lot more valuable. Those are not being created and destroyed every 5 minutes. Those stick around for a while. So having those checker domains and having those in your threat intelligence feeds is actually kind of valuable. Now, when they actually go to steal the credentials, we go to the stealer domain. And the formatted args that you have, those are the credentials that you have sent in there. And they are posted to this hard-coded domain over here. And now that's interesting to happen. That's interesting to know, and that's interesting to have, because those domain names, they stick around for a while, and those are valuable to have in your threat intel. Like I said, those landing pages, nobody cares, but the checker and stealer domains, those are interesting. So those we keep. And those we use in our threat intelligence to determine if users, customers, victims have visited that particular website or not. So they check if it's a reply, then they decrypt the formatted args that came in, and then they grab the session. And then when we see this happening in the traffic of our customers, we know what time it is, we know it's too late, and we can, fire up the response engine and start with the reset passwords, revoke session tokens, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, what do we do with this data that we get from URL query? Well, we use this to write detection logic, Yara rules in this case, mostly. Here's a couple of examples. Variables when it comes to parts of the domain name, the formatted args that happen. If you go back here, you see those formatted args. They come back here as well. The plus rand route, which is over here. So we use things that we see in the code as variables in Yara rule signatures to detect traffic that matches these things. And of course, the bad guys, they tweak and tune, and then we have to tweak and tune as well in order to stay up to date, so that infinite cat and mouse game keeps going up. But when it works, and then you get results like this, where you don't know that there is a new checker or stealer domain, but based on the Yara rules you have and the traffic you've seen, you're like, hey, similar traffic to a new domain that we hadn't seen yet. And now we found that new stealer and or checker domain, because of the signatures in the traffic, and not so much the fact that we have seen the website and know that it is actually a stealer or a checker domain. So that's nice. Now, we track all this traffic as much as we can, and we visualize that in some graphs. Why? Very simply because the bad guys don't give us a phone call and tell us that, hey, we updated our code or this or that, so you also need to update your detection logic. Shit, my job would be a lot easier if they did that. But they don't, so we need to stay on the up and up by tracking them and seeing that, oh wait, certain things are going like flatline. They might have changed things, which is our input moment to go in, dig in again, find the latest version of their code base and see if they have made changes to the way that they send their code, send their credentials to where, from where, etc. And if we need to revise our signature rules in order to catch them again. So yes, infinite cat and mouse game. Okay, so threat intelligence, why are we doing all this? Threat intel, as a thing, is a pyramid. At the bottom you have data in its rawest form, IP addresses, URLs, things like that. But they don't mean anything until you process them into information, which is data, but in processed form. And then at the top, when you actually say, haha, now I have information, now I'm going to do something with that information, now we speak of intelligence. So we want intelligence, not for the sake of intelligence, but we want intelligence for the sake of making educated decisions around the way that we deal with these phishing kits and how we work around them and how we continuously keep detecting them. And what we need to keep in mind is that when we build this threat intel, who do we do it for? I mean, we do it mainly for the security analysts that operate our SOC, because they see all the alerts incoming. They need to do triage and analysis on that, correlate with existing and outside threat intel, and then eventually make that decision. Yes, this is a true positive. No, this is a false positive. It goes into the bin, and then next. Secondary, we do this for our customers, and we do it for the detection engineers, because the detection engineers need to know what's going on, so that when new versions of these phishing kits come out, that they can modify, create, update, lifecycle, whatever, the detection logic that they already have in order to stay ahead of the curve, so that future phishing kits can also be detected. So we need to make sure that this process is in line with the needs of the people that we do it for, and not just, why are you doing it? Because we can. I mean, it's also a valid reason, but it's good if it has a second real reason that supports the security processes that we have. So, kind of already mentioned this. For the SOC analyst, what does data mean? Data for them would be a list of IP addresses and domains that are, for instance, those phishing domains from Tycoon to Afei. But if I just give them a list of IP addresses and URLs, they're going to be like, what's this? So in order for them to understand what it is that they're looking at, it needs context. So if I give them the list and say, hey, these are phishing websites, and these are the checker and sealer domains, then suddenly for them it's information. And then on that, we can say, with this information, you can make educated guesses around the incidents and alerts that you are triaging. Then it becomes intelligence, and that helps them on the split-minute decision when it comes to, is this a true positive or is this a false positive? And if this is a true positive, what should I do? Reset password of the user, revoke session tokens, reinforce MFA enrollment, and things like that. And then for the detection engineer, they zoom out and they say, well, we're catching these phishing kits today, but they might change it tomorrow. They might change their code base. They might change the way that they're doing business now and sending information back and forth. And we need to make sure that our signatures are wide enough to catch it when they make small modifications to their code base, but not too wide that we get a lot of false positive. And they need to be narrow enough that we find them, but not so narrow that we miss any true positives. So they need that information in order to do their job. Now, the best thing, of course, is to make sure that you are not exploitable in the first place. So when it comes to adversary in the middle attacks, there are very good ways out there to not be exploitable. Most organizations are in Azure in some way or shape or form. So conditional access policies have loads of capabilities of saying that, oh, users logging in with a different user agent for the first time from a location that they've never logged in from, and so and so and so. I mean, it happens after the fact. The user has already been phished and their credentials have been compromised. And the threat actor is then using those credentials from a different location, different user agent, and so and so and so. So you're still going to have to act, but at least conditional access policies will kick the threat actor out, and then from there you won't have to deal with more compromise and more data exfiltration and so and so. Now, together with making sure that you only allow compliant devices and then risk-based policies, will make it quite difficult for threat actors to successfully exploit credentials if the user has been phished. And if that doesn't work, I know they're not the cheapest around, but FIDO2 passkeys, the UB keys, and things like that. If only for your most sensitive employees, that if they get compromised, you're like really up shit creek without a paddle, would also be a suitable solution in order to make sure that they become relatively hardened to being phished. And then it becomes a bit of a math game, like how much time are you spending on, even if you've gotten the process down to a T, and you can do it like click, 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 okay, this user has been uncompromised, we've revoked and this and that and so and so and so. How much time is that taking you? Because even if it takes you only 10 minutes, if it's happening 40 times a week, that's still 400 minutes. And compare that to a solution with a bunch of FIDO keys, or actually setting up proper conditional access policies, or one of the other ways to do adversary in the middle mitigation, might eventually actually be worth it. And with that, I would like to say thank you. I hope that this was entertaining and or informational. And if you have any feedback, please scan the QR code. It is not a phishing website, I promise. And if not, then come find me after the show, and if you have any questions, or now.
Very insightful talk. Thank you, Lex. Are there any questions?
My presentation was so clear, there are no questions.
All right. Then, yeah. Thank you so much, Lex.
Yeah, you're welcome. Enjoy today.